Hello.
Hey, it's us again. So, Christina.
Monica.
Sorry about the technical difficulties earlier, but we're going to try to continue where we stopped. And so I'm going to share my screen with you, and we're going to talk through what we just did. So looking at this, we're back on MIT App Inventor. And it said my session just ended, which is totally fine. MIT App Inventor 2. And as you recall, we had already created the ASU label, and then we created the About Us button. And so all that I'm doing is going back to my project, which is titled ASU, so everyone should have theirs labeled as ASU. And looking at this, I relabeled everything too. So my label now says ASU label, no spaces, because MIT App Inventor hates spaces. And then my button says About button, no spaces, again, because MIT App Inventor hates spaces. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new screen. So I got to where it says Add Screen. Before I do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and rename this screen. When you add something, you need to rename it immediately. It's very important that you rename everything as soon as you have the opportunity to do so. So instead of being called Screen 2, I'm going to call this About Screen.
And check for spelling to make sure it's spelled correctly, because you'll need to know what it says later.
And then I press OK. It's going to take a second, and then it's going to open up a brand new screen that's going to be completely blank. So there's nothing on this screen. I'm going to go ahead and add another label. So I go over to Palette. I click on Label. I'm going to drag it over. I'm also going to center everything. So the way I center things is I click on About Screen where it says Align Horizontal. I'm going to click Center. Now it's over to the middle. Click on Label 1. We know that when we add something new, we need to rename it immediately. So instead of saying Label 1, it's going to say About Label, because this is my screen that is about stuff. So it's going to be about Arizona State University. So for background color, I'm going to choose the same color that I did for my first one, which was blue. I'm going to make my font bold. I'm going to change my font size to 28 so it's larger. Leave these things automatic for right now. For text for label 1, I'm going to change this to About Us. I'm going to change my text alignment to center so it's spaced in the middle. And then for my text color, I'm going to use white. So that's how I created a label. Now I'm going to add a space. Or should I add a button?
Add the text first, so like the label. We're going to add the label so we can include text, and then we'll space it out because you don't want it on top of each other. And we'll do that in a second.
So I added another label. So I went over to Palette, User Interface, Label. I drag it over to the middle. Immediately I know I need to rename it. So rename, and this is going to be about Arizona State University. So I'm going to say ASU label. Press OK. For background color, I'm going to change this to, I'm going to do pink for right now. I'm going to change my font size to
usually
20.
Yeah.
Let's do like 16.
You usually want a little bit smaller than your title, which is your About Us.
Yeah, so this is going to be a story about ASU. So Monica and Christina
Graduated at ASU.
Graduated from ASU.
ASU was founded in 1885. I don't know if that's true, but we're just writing text to show you where you would write text.
We have 97,000 students. In case you didn't know this, ASU is the largest public university in the United States.
And we were ranked #1 for innovation for the 3rd year in a row, beating out Stanford and MIT. So if any of you students are interested in coming to ASU for innovation or entrepreneurship, engineering, it's a great program, so check it out. Second year in a row.
So when I type all of this out, we can see that this is way too huge, and that's completely okay because now we're going to change the size. So where it says height automatic and width automatic, where it says width, instead of having it be automatic, I'm going to change it to be 100%, and I'm going to see what that looks like. And notice now it's correctly spaced everything in terms of the width of this page. However, the height is a little bit wonky. I'm going to change that to, that looks like, so it's pretty nice. And this is just a numbers game. I always do percent because I don't know anything about pixels, so percent's a little bit easier for me. And then I'm going to go ahead and center it just so it's a little bit more visually appealing. And yeah, so if we look at this, I have my About Us label, and then I have the story about ASU. It's kind of stacked on top of each other, and that's kind of, when you look at an app, like things are not stacked right on top of each other. So I'm gonna put a space between these. Go over to the left side for your palette, scroll down to where it says layout, and then you're gonna click where it says horizontal scroll arrangement and drag it over, put it between your About Us and the ASU label. And so it's a big gray box right now, and that's okay. The person who's using your app is not going to see this gray box. It's just gonna be an empty space. And because this is so huge, it says automatic, automatic. I'm gonna change the height of my space because this is too much of a space. So I'm gonna try 10% and see what that looks like.
Yeah, so as again, this gray box is actually invisible on your actual app.
So I have my About Us label, I have my horizontal spacing, and then I have my story about us at ASU. The last thing I'm going to add is another button because I want to be able to get back to my screen, my first screen. Screen 1 is the only one that you cannot rename. So the way that I add a button is I go back over to Palette, I click on User Interface, I click on Button, I'm going to drag Button over to my viewer. It's in the center right now. I know that immediately when I add something, I need to rename it. So instead of being Button 1, I'm going to rename it to Back Button. I click OK. I'm going to change the background color. I'm going to have it be red. I'm going to change my font size to be like 20, make my font bold. For my shape, because it's a button, I'm going to make it rounded. Instead of saying text for button 1, I'm going to say back. And change my font color to, I'm going to do yellow. So again, I'm noticing that everything is stacked on top of each other. Usually back buttons are either at the very top or at the very bottom. I'm going to leave my back button at the bottom, but I don't like that it's right underneath my story, so I'm going to add another space. The way that I add space is go over back to Palette, out, click on horizontal arrangement, drag it, put it between my story and my back button. And this is still not big enough for me. I want it to be at the very bottom of my screen. So for height, I'm going to change the percent. I'm going to see what 30% looks like, and that's probably too much. Oh, let's try 50%.
Oh, it's a little too much. So maybe 40? Okay, 40 looks good.
Cool. So great. Again, remember these gray spaces, you are not going to see them. The next thing I'm going to do is start coding. So in order to start coding, I'm going to go back to my screen 1. Click on screen 1. I'm going to go over to blocks. Blocks is where I began my coding. This is from earlier. I'm going to delete this. Ignore this. Okay. So in order to use my buttons, because I want my About button to take me to my About screen, click on About button. Click on when About button click do. I'm going to click on Control because I want it to open another screen. So I need to scroll and look for where it says Open another screen, screen name. Click it in. It needs to make that click sound. If you hear the click sound, then you are 100% correct. So right now it says when About screen is clicked, it's going to open another screen, and that screen name has a certain name. However, there is no name. So I need to add the name of that screen. So I'll click on Text, scroll all the way to the top, click on the one that has quotation marks. In here, I'm going to type in About screen. This is the exact same way that I spelled my screen at the top.
So be sure you can click on the screen 1 and make sure how you spelled it. It needs to be exactly as is right there.
So you see capital A, capital S. It looks exactly the same. So now I know that when I click on my About button, it's going to take me to my About screen. So I'm going to go back to Designer. I want my back button to take me back to my home screen, my screen 1. So I'm going to click on About screen. Here's my viewer. In order to code, I go over to the block side. This is why I relabel everything. So this is where I'm going to find my labels, my buttons, my horizontal arrangements. I know that I want to click on my back button, so click on back button. When I click on back button, it needs to do something, so I go to Control. I want it to open another screen, so I'm going to look for open another screen, screen name. It's going to make the click sound. So right now it says when I click on my back button, it's going to open another screen that has a certain name. To find the name, I need to click on text, scroll all the way to the top, find the one with quotation marks. This one is going to be screen 1. Remember, screen 1 is the only one that we cannot rename. I make sure that these match up correctly. So capital S, no spaces with a 1. Okay. So now I want to see if this is going to work. And so I'm going to use my emulator on my computer.
You might have to download this in advance.
If not, you can use your tablet. The best way to use your tablet is to use the USB cord. So the USB cord is the one you use to charge it. Just unplug it from that little brick and plug it into your computer. My Outlook is full. And so here's my emulator. It's just sitting on the side. It's waiting to connect.
So there's really 3 different ways you can actually test your app. One way is by downloading the MIT AI Companion. So when you hit connect, that was one of the options, but you have to download the app on your phone and you can actually test it out on your phone.
Or the tablet.
Or you can or a tablet, but you'd have to download the app. Or you can directly connect with your tablet through USB to your computer. And then this is a third option here, which is the emulator. So you can actually see it on the screen. As you can see here, it has like a fake little phone. So we should be able to see the app.
So we unlock our phone just like we would with like a normal phone. I double click on MIT App Inventor Companion just like I would on a real phone. It's starting in 4 seconds, in 3 seconds, in 2 seconds. So now I'm going to...
It takes a second.
Yeah. And it all just also depends on your Wi-Fi. So it says that it's running, it's waiting to get my blocks and my coding. Okay. So sometimes you're gonna have to update things.
And it's like kind of like a real little phone because it actually makes you do updates. While we're waiting for that to connect, feel free to customize. Remember your main screen 1, you always want it to be clean and simple. So like right now what we did, it doesn't necessarily match our colors, but with your actual app, you want it to be clean and simple and use the colors that your business may use. So simple is best for your main screen. It's highly recommended.
If you want to add a picture, you can do that. So we can see that it's starting again. It's waiting to get my blocks, which means that it's just waiting to get my code that I snapped into place on the...
Sometimes it takes multiple tries.
I mean, this is what really happens in real life. So it's installing. Thanks for your patience. Also, if you're at this part, maybe fast forward to when it's actually working.
While you're waiting, you can make your buttons look good.
Installation is finishing, just like a real phone.
Mm-hmm.
How funny would this be if it was not recording our voices?
I think it does.
I think it does too. But one time Katie was recording something and it didn't record her voice, and she had done like an hour's worth of talking.
Well, we're hoping you can all hear us right now, and that we're not talking to ourselves. Hopefully.
So it's running the emulator. It's waiting to get my code again.
I just totally lost it.
So I would fast forward. I'm gonna try to connect again.
Mine says no internet connection. Maybe that's what it is.
I was able to download the update. So this is real life. This is what would really be happening in a classroom too. We're just sitting really far away from you right now. Oh, look. Ah.
Something's happening. There we go.
Look. Okay, great.
Okay,
So this is my About Us page. It's got the story on it. And then when I click on my back button, it should take me back to my home screen. And it took me back to my home screen.
Can we fix that? Do you see how the buttons are on top of each other?
Oh, on the About one?
Yeah, on the main screen.
Oh, yeah. So when I go back to my screen 1, which is my home screen, notice that everything is way too close to each other.
So go to your designer.
And let's try to remember how we go and we add a space. So I go to palette, I click on layout, I'm going to click on horizontal arrangement. Oops. Put it between Arizona State University and About Us. I kind of like that amount of space.
Yeah, looks fine.
And this is also real life, right? Like we know that sometimes the app might crash. But anyway, this is how you make your buttons go back and forth and toggle between screens. If you have any questions, please email me. And thanks, Liz. Thanks, Lucia.
Thanks, Limbom. You guys are awesome. Thank you for helping each other.
Yeah, have a great day.
Bye-bye.